evening, and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 309th take, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studio of Azle, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. This is going to be a fantastic show. I'm so looking forward to having this guest return for his third time to the show and his third company. We're going to talk about the man on the move with my guest of honor tonight. And all the enthusiasm that he brings to every single show that he's been on. I love having him on as a guest, and this will not disappoint. But before we get to introductions of our guests of honor, we do have to thank the people that make this show possible, and that, of course, is our sponsors. And tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate is at it once again, announcing the return of the 2024 exclusive for Casa de Monte Cristo. You guessed it, everybody. The Liga Privada Unico Porchetta has returned to Casa de Monte Cristo for 2024. You don't want to miss this out. It was announced just a couple of weeks ago. The exceptional culinary-inspired cigar now comes with an updated footband and corner sticker reflecting its 2024 release. Renowned for its unique flavor profile reminiscent of traditional Italian roasted pork, the Liga Privada Unico Serie Porchetta is once again available exclusive at Casa de Monte Cristo retail locations. That's all Casa de Monte Cristo retail locations. So go out, scour the countryside for your closest Casa de Monte Cristo and seek out the Liga Privada Unico Serie Porchetta. Jonathan Drew, founder and president of Drew Estate from the Wynwood Safe House, pontificates Porchetta is a meaty, in-your-face, turbulent journey of flavor and aroma. It's hard-hitting yet smooth, kind of like Larry Holmes's jab. Powerful but controlled. Our 2024 release continues this legacy of depth, complex notes, same blend, updated packaging. Go figure. The Liga Privada Unico Serie Porchetta showcases a meticulously fermented Connecticut River Valley stock cut and stock cured Habano wrapper plantation grown Brazilian Matafina binder, along with curated mix of Honduran and Nicaraguan fillers. Presented in a gorgeous 6x46 box press Bolicoso size, the Porchetta offers an intricate, savory, and robust smoking experience. Check out Casa de Monte Cristo today for this wonderful annual exclusive from Drew Estate. And welcome, everybody. This is our 309th take. We are broadcasting live on Facebook at 9:30 Central like we do every night. But if you are checking us out wherever you listen to us later on podcasts, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Tonight's audio broadcast is courtesy of Grand Habano Cigars. Honest, compassionate, great cigars. Be sure you download, subscribe, and review today, thanks to our good friends at Grand Habano Cigars. And tonight's guest is brought to you by United Cigars. Smoke one today and start living united. Yes, this is Mr. Jack Heyer of Camacho Cigars. Jack, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Bear. I'm excited. I mean, I didn't realize that every time I'm on this show, I have a different job. Hopefully, that is a trend that's going to stop for a while. You know, I've been called the Lane Kiffin of cigars, which, you know, in some respects is it's derogatory, and in some respects, you know.
Look, you're always employed. I mean,
I'm always employed by somebody. It just happens to be a different one. But, you know, I've finally made my way home, and, you know, I'm just excited to be chatting with you, Bear, about all things. God knows what we're going to get into this evening, but I know that we will have a informational and educational and entertaining conversation, as we always do.
Absolutely, man. And it's such great to have you back. You know, I'm really excited. You know, ironically, the only pit stop I missed you in was Alec Bradley. Ironically, yeah. So that was the only one that I missed you on. But it's you know, it's interesting. This business has a lot of, you know, there is a lot of. I don't want to say turnover because has such a negative connotation, but there is a lot of recycling.
There's no turnover. There's a lot of recycling.
Yeah, it's recycling. You know, it's, you know,
nobody ever leaves, but people end up in different places. And
no one's ever fired except for, you know, like the very select few, like poor Sam Lucia, the only guy to ever admit to being fired in the cigar industry. That guy holds the marker, but.
Yeah, nobody ever admits to being fired.
Yeah, parting ways, a mutual agreement.
You know what? I think that maybe it's just like because cigars are so old school, you get a lot of people in old school business that kind of, you get a lot of people that are lifers in the industry, but a lot of people stick with one company for 20, 30, years. Not saying I don't want to do that, but people my age, we like to see what's out there. We like to see what's around. So I've always said, if there's an open door, if there's an opportunity or something I've always wanted to do, regardless of how long I've worked at where I'm working, I want to check it out. So, if the opportunity to be a brand ambassador for Camacho pops up, I got to see what that's about. And that's how I ended up here. And, I'm loving life, Bear. It's a great company to work for. It's a great brand to represent. I'm under the Davidoff umbrella, so we have all of that support and the quality. But I also get to be the Camacho guy. It's the best job you could get. I get to wear jeans and work for Davidoff still. It's like it's a treat.
And your logo is one of these bad boys. I mean, that's pretty cool.
The logo's a scorpion, man.
Yeah,
That's
mean, I still have this. I don't know why. But I love it, man. I mean, you guys sent
we
these
still
out.
have some of those kicking around.
Yeah, I have all three of them. I have all three in the the collections.
The baby bear, the mama bear, and the daddy bear.
Yeah, exactly. So they're all kicking around everything. We'll get into Camacho a little bit here, obviously, just in a few minutes. But you were talking a little bit about how your travel schedule has been so hectic, and this is probably one of my heaviest travel years that I can remember as well too. And so, what do you like to do on the airplane? Do you watch movies? I watch movies. Do you watch movies? Do you listen to podcasts, music?
I kind of go through seasons. So I am like I'm in an audiobook time right now. So I'll find like a little mobile game that I like and I'll just rip through audiobooks. But sometimes I'll just scroll and scroll and scroll on my 15 different, apps. Sometimes I'll read, sometimes I'll movie, but I spend a decent amount of time on planes, so I kind of like to recycle. But I never do just one thing, and I can't sleep on planes. It's my curse.
Oh man.
Lucky I've flown enough that I get to pick my seat now, so I always get. I mean, most of the time, always get a little extra leg room, but I just can't. I'm just sitting up. You're not comfortable, so I always find something to do. So right now, I'm in I switch between like a history book and then like a sci-fi or fantasy book, and I listen back and forth, and I just play a mindless like Candy Crush style game for hours and hours and hours.
That's nice. I mean, what's the longest flight that you've actually taken for the company?
It's not like one leg. I mean, Los Angeles is like Tampa to Los Angeles will be the longest, but it's the layovers because you always stop in either Dallas. I'm in Dallas, constantly, or Charlotte. I've been stranded a few times in a different place, but like, I just did Phoenix. That's 4 and change. So it's not crazy. And most of the time it's 2 to Dallas or 2-ish to Charlotte. And then wherever else I'm going, cause I fly American only. So it's not too bad. I sprung for the lounge access thing. So now I get to, I get a comfier chair and I get some free snacks that I paid for a lot of money, but it's not so bad. Casey from Crux gave me the best advice ever when it comes to air travel. He goes, as soon as you give them your bag, or as soon as you get your ticket, you have to behave as if you're a prisoner and the airline is like your captor. He's like, so if you get riled up, if your flight gets delayed and you're like, oh man, I'm never gonna get there, you're just gonna be miserable. If you're just like, all right, I am custody of American Airlines until I land, it'll change your life. I promise you. I mean, it's a little different. I'm going for like business purpose. So if I was going on vacation and my flight got delayed, 2 days, that would be kind of rough. If it's like, if I miss an event, that sucks, but it's, it's not like I'm, losing my hard-earned money. It's just a delay that, my job is just to get there. So not the end of the world.
Exactly. Yeah, I watch movies when I'm on planes, and speaking of delays, this last month, actually back in August, I was supposed to leave. I was like, oh, I thought it was perfect. I was flying to Nashville, short flight from DFW, and I was like, and I was like, I have a window seat, which I really don't like. But I was like, oh, it's to Nashville. It's fine. It's a short flight.
Right.
And I didn't have to get up super early. Was leaving in the middle of the day. Was going to get there at a decent hour because it's a short flight. And I was like, oh, this is
Yeah.
perfect. This couldn't be, I mean, couldn't be better,
Six
right?
hour, 6 hour delay.
So, 7. 3 of it was within 5 feet of the gate.
Uh,
I
didn't even get
watched an entire movie having
before you.
I didn't even get to the tarmac. I can't even say that I was on the tarmac. I didn't even get to the tarmac.
The worst. It's like, just tell me so I don't even have to get on the plane. So I can
Yeah.
just be walking around or doing something.
Yeah, they deboarded us and got us to another gate.
And then the pilot times out or whatever, and you're
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, get me out of here.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. But yeah, I mean, I got there, like you said.
You always
I got
get there.
Yeah.
It's never, even the easy ones aren't that easy. And I have gotten to the point where if I have enough good travel experiences in a row, I'm not like, wow, my luck is so great. I'm just like, a nasty one's coming. I got a bad one. I got a rough one coming, and I don't know what it is.
Gotta just fend off that feeling. And when you get there, okay, it's like, okay, fine, I dodged another bullet, you know. So
I had one time I was flying home to Tampa, and I never sleep on planes, and I was able to fall asleep, but there were like storms and stuff. So we land, and like nobody's getting up for some reason. I'm like, why isn't anybody getting? Because usually when you touch down, as soon as people can stand up, they stand up.
mhm.
It's like, what is that? And I have my earphones in, so I can hear like, I'm like, I don't know what this is. So I finally like take my earbuds off, and I'm like, what is this? And it's like, oh, sorry, folks, we had to land in Orlando. There was weather, blah blah blah. So we landed. I thought that I was, 35 minutes from my house. No, had to wait. Storms pass, then fly again. I was like, oh my God. I almost wanted to get out and just rent a car and drive home. But such is life.
God
Us
bless.
road warriors, it's not so bad. I always say that I get to, wherever I'm going, I get to smoke a cigar and hang out with people. So,
There you go.
it's not like I'm,
I was driving
getting
back, not driving. I was flying back from Germany a few years back, and it was really funny. It was Lufthansa, and of course, it was one of the times where there was a winter storm here in the Dallas area, which just shuts down the world because we can't do snow.
it's that he's
Yeah, and they were like instead of like canceling the flight or whatever, Lufthansa says no, we'll get you there. We're like, well, how the fuck is that gonna happen? They fly us to Houston, and they're like, and that's it. Like the airline didn't give us any accommodations, nothing. It was just like, okay, we got you to Texas. That's close enough. Fuck you, dude. Houston's 4.5 hours away from my house, like on a good day without traffic. Like it was
the
like
worst situation.
like we got you into the same state. It's fine. like okay. Like, oh man. But I was befuddled by the fact that there was no accommodations given whatsoever. Like we had to rent a car.
You didn't get that or anything?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. So luckily I had some friends in Houston that took us in, and it was fine.
Yeah, you're just a refugee. They're like, we got you to Texas. Good luck, man.
Yeah,
You got this. Whatever. The rest is on you.
Best
You're
of luck.
gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine.
Best of luck for sure. Well, Jack, I don't know if are you gonna be smoking tonight or is it just me?
I'm indoors. I mean, I have to choose between internet and smoking a cigar. So, for the sake of the listeners and viewers, I'm going to have you smoke by yourself.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Well, I got some gems here, man. I got some ancient ones and some goodies at the same time. So, as always is a tradition here on my show, you're gonna pick my cigar for me. So, we're gonna let's start off with I have actually this is my last sealed package of Camacho Factory Unleashed #2.
Oh, nice. That might be a good starting option.
Yeah. I've got a Camacho Nicaraguan Robusto. I have a Camacho Corojo Maduro Toro.
Oh, wow. That's an old one.
Yeah. And if you think that's old,
you got some OG magic.
What year did you graduate from high school, Jack?
2012.
This cigar is from when you were in high school, my friend. Here we go. This precedes both you and I in the industry.
Amazing.
This is a Camacho. Yes, sir. Corojo Monarca Candela from March of 2010.
Super old. The old band and everything.
Yeah, the old band and everything, man. Crazy.
Backhoff had just bought Camacho back then. That was like It was fresh.
That's probably why I got it. I probably got some old fleshing out some inventory or something.
I think if you're probably gonna have time to smoke too, I would guess. I think you probably start with the Factory Unleashed 2. That's a nice Connecticut.
Okay.
That'd be good, and then you finish with that ancient one, the
Candela.
God knows what that'll taste.
Well, we'll find out. We'll find out. Let's do it.
I have never had a super old Candela.
I'm about to. I'll tell you how it goes. But all right, here I pulled out one of the Unleashed Factory number 2s. And we will get started with tonight's major point, which is always brought to you by Gran Habano Cigars. From the fertile lands of Honduras, George Rico and his family have put together the very best vintages for you. Yes, you, the cigar smoker. From value-based hits like Corojo number 5 to the award-winning 20th anniversary to special projects like Zulu Zulu, Gran Habano is about cultivating the best and making pinnacle cigars for the market. Culture, tradition, quality, premium handcrafted Gran Habano cigars. All right, Jack. Well, we're going to go ahead and light this baby up. I'm using my ST DuPont Fluo lighter. I don't know if you had a chance to check out ST DuPont's latest and greatest, but this is a pretty awesome. I really like the electric orange. I feel like that would be something that you would pick out.
It's a nice pocket lighter too. I like that. There's something I like the ST DuPont Jets because the ping is nice. But it's kind of hard for me to get that to work in all situations. Let's just get down to brass tacks. Let's just get straight to it.
Yeah, just light the cigar. Well, so
yeah.
Kind of takes one of my questions away from me later on in the show, but that's fine.
It's okay. We can rediscuss it.
Yeah, we can rediscuss it. So, Jack, I wanted to kind of revisit because the last time you were on my show, you were part of an ensemble. It was when you were at Drew Estate. Yeah, so it was you, Joe Grow, on Fawn. All from the great Drew Estate, and before that it was one of my first takes. It was back when you were a co-host of Cigar Dojo, man, and so this is a long and illustrious history. I'm 309 takes in, and here you are for a third time. So I really appreciate it. But
that's incredible.
I mean, it's. There's kind of been an evolution to you, man. I mean, like when we first sat down and chatted, it was like, okay, where did you start? Like, why did you get into cigars? And here you were enjoying we were kind of colleagues, not kind of, but we were colleagues,
Yeah.
So, and, but like, what transitioned in, like, what transitioned in you? Like, what started what was the bug that was like, man, I want to do more. I want to get more into this. And the media components just not enough. I got to get involved in these brands.
I was just super, super, super lucky because I think a lot of guys, by the time they find cigars or by the time they, get into cigars, they probably already are decently developed in their careers. So, there are very few guys that can, even if I wanted to start again right now, like let's say I wasn't in cigars right now and I was in, tech sales and then I found cigars. I don't think that I could do what I did now because at the time when I was working for Cigar Dojo, I was really just hanging out with those guys. And then I, got to the point where I was getting paid to do a little bit of reviews. And then Eric was so gracious and said, hey, we want to have you work here. And I was doing that. And then, as soon as the bug got in my head, that was like, man, I could actually kind of do this. Like I could do this like full time. I was working at a pension plan. So, I was working in the mailroom at a pension plan. So we're not talking like, yacht money. I was having a great time, good benefits. But I was like, you know what? I think that I could pull this off. So I was working with Eric, and then I had talked to Bradley of Alec Bradley fame. And I was like, man, I think I kind of want this to be it. I kind of want to like work in cigars. And he's like, well, would you ever consider like relocating for a job? I was like, I don't think I've ever even considered it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe. And he said, well, we're interviewing for a position on the West Coast. I don't even know if you're interested in all this stuff. And it just kind of felt like this, like, why not throw your hat in the ring? And I was lucky enough to get the gig and moved out, out west and got started. So for me, what I'm kind of rounding out to say is that just at that time, I was single, didn't own anything but a car and my stuff, and for me to move across the country was as easy as just loading up the car and shipping out. So I was lucky enough to be around for a decent amount of time before, and that I could just kind of go all in. And now, my first trade show I went to was with Eric and Jordan and the Cigar Dojo guys. It was in New Orleans in 2015, and I was 21. And now next year, I'll get to go back to New Orleans, and it'll be 10 years.
Yeah, it'll be your 10th anniversary. How about that, man?
Cigar industry stuff,
Yeah.
And it's so funny because when I started, it was just my favorite thing to do. It was just my hobby, and I really liked keeping it that way. To be honest, I liked having the thing that you look forward to at the end of the day. You go, you work, you get home, and you're like, man, I can't wait to sit on the front porch and try the latest XYZ that I picked up, or I got to do this review, or, we got a guest this weekend on the podcast.
Right.
I say that I'm married to cigars now. And it's a great and wonderful thing. Cigars have provided a lot for me. I don't think that I would have met my current fiance or seen half of the things, traveled all around the world, if it wasn't for cigars. But, I can't, there's nowhere for me to go. I don't go home. It's like when I go to work, I'm at a cigar shop hanging out. When I get home, I'm like, I don't really want to smoke a cigar, man. It's the strangest thing.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if the relaxation, the therapeutic part of it, kind of became lost or not for you.
I think, well, one, I live in Florida, and it's hotter than snot most of the year for me to enjoy a cigar on my patio, so that plays a factor. And then two, I just spend so much of my time away from my home and away from, my dog and my spouse, that when I am home, I like to be intentional with my time. So I'm smoking a little bit less. I think that cigars as a social aspect will always be one of my favorite things to do. Get with the guys, whether it's my coworkers or friends, smoke a cigar, but very rarely do I, sit down and it's me and a cigar and I just really get to, get into it. So that in that aspect, it's a little, I don't enjoy cigars like I used to, but in another aspect, I get to, enjoy the business side of cigars and the community of cigars in a completely different way than I ever would have gotten to. Because I say that there are some people that really like cigars. There are some people that really like the cigar business. And then there's like kind of something in the middle that is this like convergence where it's like really once you're in it and you're in it and you're in it, it becomes this thing where it's like, I don't know what I look forward to more is like smoking a cigar or going and hanging out with, this retailer that I'm going to go see, or, getting on your show or Coop's show and, giving you guys shit. It's just like, it's all one thing. And I think that that's a beautiful thing, but it's, it's so far, it's miles and miles away from when I used to just smoke a cigar. It's like, now when you smoke a cigar, you're like, oh, this cigar reminds me of X, Y, and Z. And this guy, I know the guy that, works there, or made it, or this, or that. It's just totally different. It's a different thing. And I find that too, where it's like, I like cigars and cigar brands because I know the guy, it's like, and there are great cigars, but, I like the brand because I know the people attached to them. And I think that's what happens with consumers too, but it's the same with me. It's like, I love Aganorsa Leaf, but I think that that's also, they make great cigars, but, Terrence is the best. He's a good friend of mine. So it's like, it's taken on a whole life of its own. And the best and worst part is, I think it's the best part is like, Bear, I don't think I could go back to a regular job ever again. I don't know what I would do with myself, if I couldn't.
Well, that was going to be like, my question was like, like, could you ever imagine going back?
I don't know.
What would be the worst part about going back? Okay.
Oh my God. One, the colorful language that you get to deploy in an everyday scenario in the cigar industry that is completely acceptable. You know, so I walk into a cigar shop in XYZ, you'll hear
Hey,
six things.
fuckers.
Yeah, six things. That's a tough thing to lose, you know, and to be kind of prim and proper. That's not a thing that now, you know, it's not where nobody's like disrespectful or cross the line, but there's still a decent amount of, you know, camaraderie and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Getting to smoke indoors all the time. That's a tough loss. You know, that's a tough buying cigars again. I don't know if I'm equipped to do that. I'm smoking at a pace that I could not afford to replicate were I to ever, you know, leave the cigar business. I would have to like stock up for months and months and months and then be like, all right, guys, I'm pulling the plug. And I think that
you'd make it a while though. I'm sure you have quite the collection.
I actually stopped. I've formally stopped collecting. So I don't like, even with Davidoff and Camacho stuff, I only order and requisition what I am smoking or, you know, giving away to friends, whatever, you know, the guy that comes and cleans my house, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I can't, because you could just go crazy with it. If you really wanted to be like, ooh, everything that comes out, I'm going to try to source this or even with our like limited editions. If I tried to, you know, go out and buy them back at wholesale or whatever, it's like, I could have there's never going to be an end to that hunt. So it was in my Drew Estate days where I was like, all right, we're not stashing anything anymore. You know, like we got to just live and smoke what we got. But I would be able to make it a good couple years based on my current stock. I'd have to get crafty and try to figure out that next phase. But I also have expensive taste now, which is,
I was going to say,
it's going to be difficult to get, you know, I'm the Camacho guy, but you know, they keep the Camachos pretty close to the Davidoffs, and I stray time to time. I smoke a lot. I mean,
it's right there. I mean, you know, might as well.
I got to make sure that they got everything sorted out in the Dominican also, Bear.
Yeah,
you know, I know. Totally. I know I'm product testing all the time. I know we got it locked down in Honduras. I just got to step over there and make sure everything's good. You know,
right?
Just to be safe. You know.
So going back to the transition you were talking about from, you know, podcaster to and media to Alec Bradley, but going from Alec Bradley to Drew Estate was a completely different role. It's still cigars, but
totally different.
So how did that happen? You know, and you know, was it again? I know this has all been relationship building with you too. Like you mentioned your conversation with Bradley, and I know you know a lot of the folks over at Drew. And that kind of probably led to that.
One, I don't think people realize how insane of a job a sales rep for a cigar company is. As far as like normal jobs, it's one of the craziest jobs. I mean, these guys are like, if I do, you know, 100 hotel nights, for me, that's like a backbreaker. That's like, oh my gosh, that was a lot. For like a rep, if you're not doing like 150 nights, you're probably not seeing all of your, you know, accounts. That's like an average amount for them. So I had a pretty big territory. And I was getting acclimated to it. But I was in Southern California and just the cost of living was exorbitant. And I just didn't really I had a support system in my uncle, but I was trying to figure out where I was going to live. I was going to move to Arizona, and I was just having a hard time seeing how I was going to survive on the, you know,
the amount of money. You thought Florida was hot.
Well, not even that. It was just like the amount of money that I was making would have been perfect in 49 other states, maybe Hawaii. I don't know, if it seems like it would probably be expensive there. But where I was like, man, I don't know how I'm going to make this work comfortably. And it was just kind of like, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And then at that exact same time where I'm just like, man, this is going to be a little tight, but we'll work on it. Drew Estate is looking for a social media guy. So I'm a big, you know, I'm a believer in God, but I'm also a believer in signs and like things just happen for a reason. And I always am like, hey, I don't ask questions. I've always said if a door is open, I'm going to open it. I'm going to peek in and see what it's about. So I've known Joe Grow really well from my time as a, you know, podcaster and a media guy. And I wrote some articles that Joe just adored. And so Joe was like, man, you would be great in this role. I reached out and just said, hey, I said, I haven't been here longer than, 8 months, but I just wanted to see what this was about. He's like, well, honestly, when you got hired at Alec Bradley, I was kind of thinking that when this job was open, it would be a good fit for you. So I'm glad you called, and we'll, check it out. So I went down there and I interviewed, and got that job. And it was one of those things where the guys at Alec Bradley had been nothing but spectacular to me. Bradley, Mike Sirota, Alec, Alan Rubin is one of the greatest human beings I've ever known in my entire life. And, I was like, man, it's a short period of time that I was there. But the right thing came along, and it was like, hey, I can't say no to this. The opportunity to go work at Drew Estate and be in the marketing department. There's not a lot of people that get to do that. And,
Yeah.
in my opinion, they're the best marketers in our industry. So it was like, man, getting the opportunity to be on that team, it just kind of felt like I was joining, a high flying offense, and I got to, go over there and really learn. And right when I got there, COVID happened, and it was the weirdest. It seemed like it was the worst thing in the world. The world was ending. It couldn't have been a better situation for me, because my whole career I'd been doing online-y, podcasty stuff. And guess what? The whole world, that's all it was. So.
Yeah. I mean, I thought, listen, in the worst of circumstances, it was an absolute perfect position for Coop. And I actually even talked about this too. Is like, man, Jack's the perfect person for this position. And the way that y'all went about it at Drew Estate was very and I know you had a lot to do with it, which made it yours, but it just played into your skill set so incredibly well, that it just I mean, it couldn't have been more perfect.
Yeah,
And
I got really lucky. I mean, I just right place, right time. When I got down there, I'd been there for a couple months, and then COVID happened. And Bear, I went to Costco and I bought the big giant bag of rice. And I was like doing math on my fingers, and I was like, all right, if they lay me off tomorrow because the world's over, I can eat this rice until my lease is up, and then I'll drive home. That was my plan. I was like, all right, I have enough rice. I'll survive. Like, I'll live. And a couple weeks went by, and then a couple months went by, and it was like, oh, wait, we're selling cigars. Oh, wait, we're selling a lot of cigars.
did you really?
I swear to God. Yeah. Because, I'm the first guy. I just got hired. And I was
Yeah. First one hired, first one fired. Yeah.
media,
Or last one
digital
hired, first one
stuff.
fired.
Yeah, I was doing digital social media stuff, and it seemed kind of trivial, as the world was ending.
Burning alive. Yeah, gotcha. That makes sense.
JD is like, that guy's a genius. I mean, we when like somebody says something and you're like, oh wow, that feels like a bit of an overreaction. We're all getting ready to sequester for like 2-3 weeks, and he's like, this isn't going to be 2-3 weeks. This is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 months. And I was like, this guy is losing his marbles. I was like, we're going to be back here in a couple weeks. This is all going to be over with. We're all. And he started, was like, hey, we got to plan for like a longer term future situation here.
Mm-hmm.
And, the team kind of came up with Freestyle Live. It was a combination of, Joe Grow and some of the leadership and myself and, some of the consumer engagement guys came up with, just a live show to unveil some of the swag that came out. And I was just putting together what the posts would look like. And they're like, hey, who's going to host this thing? They're like, Jack, I think that you'd be a good option. I was like, me? They're like, well, Pedro's a good guest. Pedro's like you need to throw things to Pedro and he can run with it.
Yeah.
And they're like,
1000%.
JP can't host this. Willie's going to be your kind of like we need somebody at the steering wheel. You're just going to be the guy that's pitching. And I was like, all right. And I was crapping my pants, but it went off well. As it went on, I kind of slowly started to kind of gain more influence over what the digital product looked like, and how that show came to be over the next 2-3 years at Drew Estate.
I mean, that's quite a resume, like in just your first couple stints. On talked about it when you guys were on the show too, about like how he was in a different career, and then all of a sudden he's working for the company that of his favorite cigars. Like it's from from someone in your background to being able to do social media marketing for, you know, for arguably, like you said, the best one that out there. And we even said this too, Jack. I think what's where you guys all, you collectively, but you were the face of it in a lot of ways, deserve a lot of credit. Um, you were the 1-2 punch between you and McAuliffe did the very best at really um engaging with your consumers and being able to, you know, make it seem like there wasn't really this worldwide pandemic going on. You guys made it, made life fun again, made it normal in a funky and weird way. And that was, I mean, that you guys deserve a lot of credit for that. And like I said, you were the face of that. So
I mean, it's crazy to think that was almost like 5 years ago now.
right.
Like it's almost 2025. That's, COVID was 2020. And yeah, it's crazy to think, just how different things were and how, virtual events and Facebook Live was going to be this huge. I mean, now we're kind of back to where we were before, where it's like, I think people are still using Facebook, YouTube, all their stuff before, but back then it was like it wasn't even like TV shows out or sports happening, so that was your only
Yeah.
outlet.
Sure.
So I mean, it was a crazy
Zoom was
time.
life. This was
Yeah, it was like
this was normal. This was the normal, what we're doing.
yeah, and it was. I mean, it was funny because at that time. I was going to Caribbean Cigars, sneaking in the back, and that was like my only human interaction was during the day. I would go and hang out there. And then at night, I would do all of the different, because we had all of these different releases and different things and all that. And the funny thing is I don't know if I really enjoy like Zoom, like whereby rooms where you kind of hang out. I love hanging out in a cigar shop with a ton of people. But I've
Yeah.
always like in the Zoom lounges, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to hang out on my phone, and that was just like all I did for like months and months and months. But with the in-person hosting, like the digital hosting, Eric was always the host. I was always the nut job, sitting next to him, drinking a few bourbons and letting it fly. So the fact that I was the host and the straight man in the situation, I thought was the funniest part. The fact that I am the most serious person on the panel is a recipe for disaster for us. But they all turned out great. And I learned a lot about, I learned way more than I ever thought I wanted to know about podcasting and, amps and microphones and mixers and all this stuff. And by the end, we had an incredibly sophisticated setup that cost thousands and thousands of dollars. And man, it was a wild ride getting there. When we released Blackened, there was a hurricane happening, and we were attached to our backup generator airing the show, and the power went out. So, I was sitting with a laptop making sure that the show was actually airing, and I was in a black office. All the lights were out, and it was just me and the backup generator that was powering the Wi-Fi, and there was 1,700 people watching, and I was like, man, this is
Insane. Like,
this is sanity.
but I think I think we have to also take note. You just talking about how like you were the straight man in that case, and you went from the zany co-host to hosting, arguably the largest internet gathering or largest live internet gathering of folks during COVID, for this industry. I mean, that was, and I what I really love to see, Jack, and please don't take this with any sort of negative connotation. It was I loved you on Dojo, and that I was a big fan of your work there. But I I loved I loved seeing that evolution of you, and I loved seeing like you were still Jack, and but there was a maturity there that was really really beautiful to see. And you were still zany, you were still funny, you still had all the things that make you you, but you were able to deliberate it in a way and still keep everything organized and make everything flow really well. and they were fun. They're still fun, but they were really fun with you at the helm there, and it was some really great work.
I tell people that that's the biggest difference between when your health insurance is at stake or not. Like when I'm on Eric's show, that's me off. That's me hanging out, blowing off steam. When I'm at work, and the funny thing is I think I've developed my years before joining this company and prior companies. I've developed a reputation for being a bit of a wild card. I think respectfully so. I've made some questionable life choices that are hysterical and wonderful. But with that, I'm a not very serious person, meaning that I take the right things in life seriously. Everything else, I just like to have fun and do it to the best of my ability. And it's like stuff like that, though. It's like, all right, we're kooky regular Jack, 5 to 9, 9 to 5. I need to be able to meld that. You need to be able to kind of, and that's a tough thing on the road a little bit too, because people are like, oh my gosh, you're the crazy guy. And I'm like, yeah, man, but I got a thing tomorrow, and I got a thing the next day, and I got a thing the next day. So I'm going to have a Pellegrino.
I'm going to go to bed at 10.
I can't do this. Not every night can be a special occasion. I'll take the San Pellegrino.
So speaking of questionable life decisions.
Yes.
I mean, could there be a more glorious foretelling of your future than what happened at Camp Camacho years ago, and you decided to get a scorpion tattoo?
I'm positive I told it on the first one, correct? Did I tell the story on the first?
Yes.
I'll retell it briefly, for those that were not lucky enough to see it. But when I was working at Cigar Dojo, and this was, I think 2017 or 18, maybe 2018. So Camacho rebuilt our factory in 2017. And with that came a stunning guest house. And Davidoff, the people at Camacho, invited Cigar Dojo down, and they said, hey, we want you guys to kind of beta test Camp Camacho. So we go down, we have a whale of a time. The first night we have a ton of fun, maybe a little too much fun. And the next day I'm kind of waking up at breakfast and my head's kind of hurting. And, the end of the night's a little fuzzy. And I'm just like, man, I don't really know if I remember how everything went down. They're like, man, you made a lot of promises last night. We don't know if you're going to be able to keep them. I said, what's that? I said, you told us you were going to get the Camacho Scorpion logo tattooed on you, this scorpion. And I'm, one, I'm a man that keeps my word. Two, I didn't think that they were going to like hold me to it. But three, I really had nothing to lose. So I was like, all right, if you guys get like an actual tattoo artist and not just some random guy, I'll do it. I'll go through with it. But I want to see like an Instagram. And I had a whole list of terms, Bear. I was like, all right, I want a first-class ticket on the flight home. They're like, done. I was like, I want a big old box. I want the sticker on the side of it to say heavy. And I want it to be full of swag and cigars and you name it. They're like, done. And then I was like, if there's ever a Davidoff at Geneva board meeting, I want to be able to flash the tattoo and gain entry to that one. And they're like, yeah, sure. That one, I don't know if they even had the authority to pull that one off, but
that's so, where'd you come up with that one?
I just thought that those would all be good, like that one. I was like, maybe I could gain influence and power with the last, I was like maybe that'll.
The scene in Armageddon when they say we're gonna go destroy the asteroid, but here are our terms and conditions, and exactly, yeah. So you just started letting
I'm gonna
bring the house.
I mean, Eric, Master Sensei Eric has always said, if somebody gets the dojo tattoo, I'll send him a box of cigars. So I was like, all right, that's Eric. I'm dealing with a multi-million-dollar company. Let's see what we can, get out of these guys. So the day after that day, so like a couple of days later, it's going down. We had a live show, and the guy shows up, and he's real short. He's wearing a top hat. He kind of looks like if you took T-Pain and kind of shrunk him down. He's like a Honduran T-Pain. He comes up. He's like, I don't speak any English, and with very like almost no accent, in perfect English. And he was like, nope, no English, just that last sentence, and then this sentence explaining it. He really didn't speak any English. He printed out this stencil, which is a piece of paper, and there was one that was like really small. It was almost like offensively small. I'm like, all right, if I'm gonna do it, I gotta do it. And then there was one that was like cartoonishly large. I was like, all right, I'm not gonna be a billboard. The one in the middle, I got it. And he was trying to figure out where I wanted to put it. He's like, where do you think? Where do you want it? And I was like, you know what? The funniest decision would be a tramp stamp. So I went through with it. I got a Camacho Scorpion tramp stamp. I'll show it. I'll flash it to the people. That's part of my never-ending punishment.
There it is.
Still there to this day. And the funniest part, I say it's like a bell curve of funniness, where like when I got it, it couldn't have been funnier. It's kind of getting less funny, if I'm being honest. And then when I'm like a grandpa with a Scorpion tramp stamp, it'll be
it'll be super cool at that point. Yeah.
Like, so at that time,
Grandpa Jack, do you know what he did when he was 20?
Yeah. At that time, I lived in Denver. You know, I took my shirt off like 4 times a year. I didn't go to the pool much. You know, I'm like, all right, I just got to be funny those handful of times. I'm not going to live near the beach or anything. I was like, I don't work for a cigar company or anything. I was like, and it's funny. So those are my 3 rationale.
And it's something general too. Like it's a scorpion, right? Like it.
Yeah, it didn't have the words. That was a key, because if it was like Camacho, people would be like, what is that? It's just the thing. And I was like, questionable. It's very questionable.
Yeah.
And people ask me, they're like, do you regret it? I'm like, I have a Scorpion tramp stamp, dude. Of course I regret it. Nobody's like, oh, I don't regret it at all. People are like, oh, do you ever look at, because they expect me to be like, you know, straight down the barrel. Like, oh, have you ever thought about getting it removed? I'm like, yeah, dude, that was like the first thing I did when I woke up the next day was like tattoo removal cost. I was like, yeah. But the best part is like, it was not that long after where I got a job at Alec Bradley. And it was not that long after that where I got a job at Drew Estate. And each of those companies were like, all right, now you got to get our logo. So that kind of it's kind of the perfect segue to how I ended up back, or, you know, not back, but at Davidoff and with Camacho. Because I'm like, one, I've always loved Davidoff, the company. I love Davidoff cigars. I love Avo. I love Camacho. I kind of have always lived the Camacho mantra, where like, I would say, if you ask me what my favorite cigar was, I would say it was Davidoff. If you ask me which one, I'd be like, dude, I don't know. I only buy them on my birthday. You know, I smoke Camacho. And then when I got, you know, a special occasion, I'll reach for a Davidoff. So I'd been at Drew Estate for a while, and Drew Estate's a wonderful company. And because they're such a wonderful company, nobody ever leaves. So I'm a upwardly mobile son of a gun, or aspire to be. And I'm like, look, I love working at Drew Estate, but I'm in the office, you know, and I don't get to really go out and meet people. And, you know, somebody had told me a long time ago, man, if you ever get the chance to be a brand ambassador, that's the job you want, because nobody else gets to do that. And there's so few opportunities in our business. So, you know, if I wanted to be a brand ambassador at Drew Estate, that's pretty tough, because the 3 are the guy that owns it, the master blender, and Pedro, who's the greatest brand ambassador ever.
Yeah,
you know,
no joke, right?
So it's just not an option for me there. So it was one of those situations where I was in no rush to leave by any means, but I had just another person, you know, a good friend of mine said, hey, if you ever want a job, the easiest way to get it is if your resume is already on the pile. You know, so it was months and months before I got the gig. I just sent a resume over to some of my buddies at Davidoff, and I said, hey, I'm not looking for anything in particular. I just want you guys, if you ever have something that's kind of up my alley, give me a call. And nothing happened for a while, to be honest. But the person that used to be, who's a dear friend of mine, who the Camacho brand ambassador emeritus, George Rami, who's a Latin Thunder, who's a cigar industry legend in his own right. He got promoted to an in-office job. So he got promoted to a non-travel position, which meant that the Camacho brand ambassador job was open, which for me was like, oh my God, hallelujah. You know, it's like, 1, I got this dumb tattoo, and 2, brand ambassador at Davidoff is the dream. And this is crazy. This is actually a real thing that happened. which seems like I'm making it up, but it's like a real, like, a universe thing, a God thing. So when I moved to Florida from California, I drove with my mom from Colorado with all my stuff. And I got to Miami and I said, all right, I think I'm going to be in Miami for like 3 years. And then I really want to be a brand ambassador at Davidoff. That's the ideal timeline for me.
Okay.
And 3 years and 1 month later, I got a job as a brand ambassador at Davidoff. And I forgot that happened. And my mom said, "Do you remember what you told me?" She said, "You really wanted to be a brand ambassador at Davidoff." And you said it would take you a few years to get there. So, like, it's something I couldn't. I call it failing upwards, because not that I'm failing, but it's not like I'm really, like the slickest, quick moving, like, spreadsheet kind of guy. I just go out, give an honest effort, and things just kind of work out for me. I don't know what I'm doing to get this lucky, but this job opened up, and I've been here for almost 2 years, a year and 10 months or something like that. And I couldn't be having more fun, man. It's a lot of travel. It's a lot of, it's hard on the body a little bit, and a little hard on the relationship, because you're apart from your spouse a lot. But besides that, it's the greatest gig you could ask for.
Yeah, man. I think that, like you said, that I think there was just a lot of perfect opportunity that really kind of opened up for you. And I think I want to talk a little bit more about Camacho here in a second. We're going to take a quick break and do one of our fun segments, because I do want to talk about your time at Camacho and what we've got going on, including what's coming up as well too. So, all right, so let's go ahead and take a break with one of our fun segments. This is everyone's favorite segment. This is the United Cigar Presidential Trivia segment. Don't worry, Jack, it's multiple choice. Brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, the Firecracker, and the highly acclaimed Atabey, Byron, and now Alfonso lines from Selected Tobacco. Smoke them today and start living united. All right, so I got 2 questions for you, Jack, and I try to make this presidential trivia sort of in some way about my guest in some way, form, or fashion. And I thought about Jack. I was like, well, that's the nickname of John F. Kennedy. I could go with Kennedy trivia.
That's
but
I got my name.
Yeah, but I decided to go with, Camacho's obviously is from Honduras. So I thought I'd go with a little Honduran U.S. presidential trivia. So the United States and Honduras actually began formal international relations in the year 1830. So who was president in 1830? Was it A, James K. Polk, B, James Monroe, C, Franklin Pierce, or D, Andrew Jackson?
1830.
1830.
Dude, I don't think. Was it Polk? I have no idea.
It's actually Andrew Jackson.
I wanted to guess Andrew Jackson, but I just couldn't. It felt like the obvious answer. It felt like that was the one that was baiting me in. Now I got to look up the order in which they came.
Monroe, Jackson, Polk, Pierce. I'll cheat for you. So,
I just read the Taft Theodore, or the Taft Teddy Roosevelt book. So I was really hoping that, because Camacho's masculine, I was like, man, maybe I could sucker my way into the one expert area that I have.
Yeah. How did you enjoy that book?
Incredible.
It's crazy time in our history. And then fast forward to 2024, and that's exactly.
It's the exact same thing that's happening right now.
Exact same thing. It's crazy.
There's 4 companies. The people are, the common person is struggling. It's insane. It's the exact same thing. When I was reading it, I was like, okay, it actually made me feel better. I'm like, all right, it's totally cyclical. Like, this is a thing that has happened before.
Yeah, it's crazy how history repeats itself. 100 years ago, what happened? A pandemic, Spanish flu.
A guy shot Teddy Roosevelt on the stage when he was speaking.
Yeah,
and he wore it also.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if would compare apples and oranges, Donald Trump and Teddy Roosevelt, but the character that they kind of portray in media, at least, very, very, very
There's
similar.
so many similarities, man. There's so many similarities across, and it's um, I talk about this all the time. Like in 100 years, the people, however you feel about the players now in the game,
Look the same.
they're gonna be judged so much differently, and they're gonna be looked at so much differently. And it's but yeah, there's just there's so much similarity between, and it's crazy. Just history repeats itself, man. It just does.
Don't you feel like people were smarter back then? I mean, like all Teddy Roosevelt did was like learn languages and learn new skills and like fight things. I'm like, I think that before you had the opportunity to be entertained constantly, you were just like, all right, I guess I'll learn French. Like, you just like in a room.
This might be useful. I'll just go ahead and just learn a new language, or you know what? I'll go down to San Antonio, Texas, sit in a fucking bar, round up some hooligans, and go charge San Juan Hill just for kicks because I love my country. Yeah,
I think that's that was even
fuck those Spanish fascists. Like we're gonna take them out. Like like it was a different time. It was a different time, Jack. It was a different time. I am marveled by that too, because it's interesting. I do a similar segment on my show with Coop, and he tries to stump me on historical questions and things like that. And
this is like who coached the Phillies in 19 whatever.
That's a question for him, man. He's got that shit down. Like he has this encyclopedic knowledge of very, very specific things. Sports history is one, music is another, which is really incredible. And I was like, dude, and cigars, of course. And then and I was like, what's your weak spot? I was having this conversation with him. I was like, what's your weak spot? And he's like, Bear, you got me on movies. He's like, I'm just not a movie guy. Like, I just not. And I was like, oh, that's like he spent his time listening to music and things like that. And I spend my time in history books and watching film, and so I think you're absolutely right, though. That's a really good observation. I think people absolutely were academically smarter.
And we're all like very specialized now. It's just there's so many of us. Like, you just do your one thing.
Well, and it's very much applied knowledge, right? It's applied knowledge. Like, think about the people who further our technology. Like, even that's very niche, and it's comical. I was of all things, I was at a trade show for my day job this week in Louisville. Got my hair cut while I was there, and he's like, "Oh, well, what do you?" Thank you very much. Yeah, he was like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm in software." And he starts asking me these questions. I'm like, "Dude, I just sell this shit, man. Like, I'm not that guy." Like with all respect, yeah. Like he was like, "How do you build?" And I'm like, "Dude, I am not that guy." Like he's like, "Well, you're in software." I'm like, you know what? I guilty as charged. I said that, but I don't know how to make it. I just know how it works and how you should apply it, and how I can better your business. So. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's applied knowledge now. And then it was kind of like, who's the smartest cat in the room, and you did that by acquiring knowledge. Yeah. So interesting.
That's like if we had to roll our own cigars, I don't think that we would smoke any cigars ever. Like, can you imagine if we had to? Nobody knows how to do roll cigars. It's actually like a novelty if you meet anybody that can. I met a guy at a shop down in Arizona that like does rolling events. He's a white guy, but he does rolling events and like rolls the cigars. And I'm like, that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
I would never even attempt to learn enough to, besides the occasional, like, when you go on like a trip or something.
Yeah, you got to do the photo op, and it's an experience. Yeah, for sure. There's a guy in the DFW area. His name is Sabino. I worked with him on a couple of events, and he's a professional cigar roller. He goes around, and he's a guy that people hire for weddings and corporate events and things like that.
Had he done it before, right? Like he didn't pick it up. Like nobody. I don't know.
He picked it up post retiring from his like real life. He's in his
no joke. Like, see, that's incredible.
Yeah, and he just was like, he went down and went down to South America for a few years and picked it up and learned how to do it, and he's really good at it. Like he's very good at it, and
make a killing doing.
Oh God, he does. He does.
It's
It's so ridiculous. And I mean, good for him. And but like, even though it's interesting, like this is a guy who didn't grow up in tobacco, but like I remember handing him a cigar at an event that wasn't one of his. Obviously, he lit it up and he started smoking. And the way that he's looking at it is
he's
the
a totally
way, yeah,
way, yeah.
is the way that like is the way that Jonathan, Drew, or Alan, or any of these folks who actually spent time down there, like, yeah, they're like going through it, or like Henke Kellner, like I remember watching. I was down at Davidoff years ago, and I remember I was listening to Klaus was lecturing us, and I was listening to him out of one ear and watching his dad with another as he's just fucking going through a Palone. And
Yeah.
Like he's just there.
He's looking at it in a different way.
Yeah, he's looking at it and seeing something that I will never be able to see.
Yeah. I joke about that, like in every, I mean, not every trip, but every, if you're lucky enough to get to go down to Central America or the DR, and you're lucky enough to get to tour a factory, and if certain tours they let you blend your own cigar.
Mm-hmm.
And I was joking about this because it happens every single time. Somebody will, in a non-joking manner, like maybe they'll be half kidding, but they'll be kind of serious. They'll be like, "Hey, let me know if you guys want to use that blend," And it's like, yeah, Tucker, I'm sure that your second, I'm sure that the 5 things that you scratched on a sheet, first of all, have never been attempted before. Like I've never. And I'm sure that the people down here that have worked here for 25 to 55 years, they never, your first crack at it will be better than their.
You're not going to colossally fuck it up because they're going to give you great materials, first of all. So the choices you get from your little menu, and it still ends up tasting like craziness. Like sometimes, like
you're not doing the right stuff. But that's one of my favorite things. It's just like if you want to keep that blend, it's like, dude, no, that's not how any of this works.
Yeah, just enjoy it for what it is. Enjoy the experience.
You got a guy for that or a gal for that.
All right, second question here. So who was the last U.S. president to visit Honduras? Was it A, Herbert Hoover, B, Lyndon B. Johnson, C, Ronald Reagan, or D, William Jefferson Clinton?
I don't feel like we would have gone down there all that recently. I don't know why. I don't feel like Reagan went down there. I want to say Lyndon Johnson, but it could be Clinton.
Give me one. You got to give.
I think Lyndon Johnson.
Oh man, I gave you a chance. It was actually Clinton.
It was Clinton.
It was Clinton. Yeah, he went down. He actually had probably one of the more formal visits in Honduras. He discussed the Reconstruction with President Flores at the time in 1999, and he addressed. There was also some U.S. Military personnel down there, and he also gave a speech to them. He's the only president to ever visit Tagus.
No joke.
Yeah.
Have you been to Honduras, Bear? Or have you just been to Nicaragua?
Actually, I haven't even been to Nicaragua. I've been to the Dominican. It's the only.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I haven't been to either. Yeah, I've had plenty of invitations, and I'm planning on making a trip eventually to both and stuff. But no, yeah, I've never been. I'm excited.
I had a ton of experience with Nicaragua, and I'd only been to Honduras the once before joining. Now I've been to Honduras a few times, and I will say, as close as it is to Nicaragua, it's funny because the border is right. So, like, if you go to Danlí, where most of the Honduran cigar operation happens, and then Esteli is not too far, and they're on the same border, but they feel like they're a million miles away because we're not going to be passing through that border. I mean, maybe if you're with Nestor Plasencia, but you feel like you're a mile away, and you feel like you're trying to get down to Danlí. It feels like it takes you forever, and then when you're going to Nicaragua, it feels like you're going up, and they're totally different. I mean, they're so close, and I know that they're different countries, but like it's shockingly different because they're pretty close together. You'd think that they would be a similar experience, but I felt like Esteli is a crazy, crazy place because of the density and the concentration of manufacturers. And Donley has a lot of stuff that you wouldn't expect. There's a Little Caesars down there. I'm like, why? What the hell is a Little Caesars doing down in Donley,
$5
Honduras?
hot and ready, baby. You gotta.
They had Pizza Huts and all this stuff. I was pretty surprised. I saw more iPhones and AirPods and all this stuff than I would expect because I've been going down to Central America for not forever, but a decent amount of time.
Yeah, that's interesting. So do you fly into Goose, or how do you get to Donley?
So back in the day, you used to fly into Tegucigalpa Airport, which was like a legendary airport because one, it's in like a valley, so it's a pretty steep descent and kind of a sudden descent, and then the runways were really short. So like when people would play like a flight simulator game, or when it would be one of the like hard levels, it'd be like it's because it's a really difficult landing. You're trying to come down pretty quickly in the wind, and the only pilots that were allowed to fly from the States down had to be ex-military pilots just because it's kind of a sketchy landing. So they changed that airport during COVID. So now it's a different airport that you fly into, which would normally be nice. The airport's great, but it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours further than Tegucigalpa. So you're further to the north, which a lot of people, when they come and visit Honduras, they're going to the north. They're either going straight to Roatan or, the northern part of the country is where a lot of the travel and tourism is. It's kind of like in Nicaragua is the opposite. Only in cigar tourism are you flying. It would be like flying into Dallas and then just driving to East Texas or West Texas for that matter. It's like, all right, I'm here. And then it's like, all right, where are you going? Oh, we're going to the agricultural areas. It's like, what? So you kind of head the wrong direction. But it's a hike. It should take you 3.5 hours to get from Comayagua, which is just outside of Tegucigalpa, to Donley. But those roads, man, there's always something. It could take you 6 or 6.5, if you
Crazy.
Like a bus hits a cow there every 5 minutes. So it can be a long hike, but it's worth the trek if ever given the opportunity, or if you're ever lucky.
That's crazy. Oh man. Well, that was, I know we got a little off topic, but that was our presidential trivia segment, which is brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana and distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey, Byron, and now Alfonso lines from Selected Tobacco. Smoke one today and start living united. We kick things off with going into Camacho. So you guys, like you said, you relaunched Camp Camacho pre-COVID, and then it was kind of relaunched again shortly after you formally started with the company.
Yes. So Camp Camacho has been around, I think, since like 2019 was the first season in earnest, and then 2020 obviously didn't go off. So the first time they did it was the year I started, so 2023. What was that? Yeah. And we did a handful of them, and then last year we did one, and then we're going to be taking, I'm not sure if we're going to be taking a ton of trips down there next year. We're still trying to remaster the whole process. We really want to create a more a top-notch experience and make it so it's not as expensive or difficult. We kind of want it to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for like retailers and customers. So we're fine-tuning what that'll look like in the future. But I don't know how many of these we're going to do, but we want to make them as special as possible. So when I went down the first time, there wasn't a huge itinerary. It was like, all right, we're going to do like a hike one day. We'll go to the factory. We'll go to the fields. And then we'll do a couple dinners. Now there is a whole like giant slew of things that we do. The highlight, of course, is always the tobacco and the factory and the farms and the processes. But the amount of extra stuff and like wow moments that we managed to cram in there, it's a very Camacho way. We wouldn't just take people down there and then drop you off at a hotel and see you in the morning. It is an emphasis on lifestyle, living loud, and having fun. It's about the coolest thing you could do. So we're trying to figure out a way that we can make that, and as much as we love having repeat customers, which is great, we don't want anybody to ever lose their sparkle, you know? So if you come down every year, it's just not going to be as much fun. So we're just trying to figure out what that looks like for us in the future. And you know how they go. I tell people, if you ever want to go, you know, we usually only take accounts and customers and media that are big time Camacho loyalists and supporters. So if your shop doesn't carry Camacho, you're probably not going to be on the trip. And if you guys are a big, huge Camacho, you know, fan based outpost place, then you know your odds are a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't run a ton of them. We run a handful a year because we want to make them special. And we, you know, we could probably take a lot more people, but you know, at the expense of the experience. So we go down there for 5 days, 4 nights, and do a whole mess of, you know, different stuff.
One of the things, I know this seems like a silly question, but like it's you know, part of your, like, I think it's even on your Facebook, but it's also part of your LinkedIn, which I know is a lot more formal of what you do. And like, you know, there's probably just a very laissez-faire explanation for it. But I hear this term, and I've heard this term throughout the years, hear it a lot with your estate. And it's kind of what you're doing now as a brand ambassador. Now, I literally know what it means.
Yeah.
But maybe it means something different. What is brand activation or an activation station? Like, what does that mean?
A good one, my favorite explanation, and I think the best explanation is when I got hired, our president emeritus, our old president, said, we call a brand ambassador a brand activation manager because a brand ambassador as a line item has a lot less job security. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, when they're looking for things to get rid of, you know, they go, brand ambassador, what does he do? Oh, we don't need a guy just walking around talking about the brand. So the scope and scale of what I do is not only going and, you know, evangelizing and just going out and doing events and talking about it. It was also coming up with the concepts and the plans and like, all right, not just what we're going to do, but how we're going to do it. And when we talk about brand activation, like from the marketing standpoint, it's just like, how are we getting in front of people, eyeballs, you know, it's like, and usually, you know, it's called different things at different places. Drew Estate, it was called consumer engagement, but that's the like in-person element. So we have a digital, you know, there's digital brand activation, like what you and I are doing right now. And there's like a, you know, how are we activating, meaning literally physically, tangibly marketing in the market. So it's like with Camacho, are we, you know, we do in-store events where I'm there and I come and I shake your hand. And we also create a program where a sales rep, we call them customer success managers, where they do a Camacho promotion or activation and I'm not there. And then there's promotions where no one is there and it's something that the store does and they set up, you know, a cool little thing in the corner that, you know, a Traeger grill that you could win at the end of the month. And then there's stuff like a big festival like Texas Cigar Festival or Rocky Mountain Cigar Fest, right. Coastal Carolina Cigar Fest, you know, a lot of these different, or the New England Cigar Expo where we'll go and do something there. So
okay,
there's all different ways of trying to, you know, just kind of catch eyeballs in person. And what I do, I tell people that my job is to say yes. And what that usually looks like is, hey, can you make this thing on the 30 whatever? Yes, that's that is what I do. I try to be within reason in as many places as possible because it's a very competitive market and we have amazing products. But with a brand like Camacho that has been around for a long time, we're not looking to come out with something new every year always and always have a new brand, limited edition, this or that. What we need to do is get in front of people again and reintroduce them to a cigar that most of them have smoked before, and forgot about how damn good that Corojo is, or, you know, whatever the brand or blend is. So that's what I'm doing. I say my goal or my job is to just put cigars in people's hands that they're buying. If you're a FDA agent, they're paying for them. All right. I don't want any funny business. But yeah, just to reintroduce people to their favorite, you know, or their next favorite cigar.
Right. I think what's like there's two brands I think of off the top of my head that do a really good job of shelf presence in terms of differing cigar brand. Like I think Perdomo does a really good job of shelf presentation,
Right.
and if you know, you know, and it's really easy once you do know to know the differentiations and things like that, and it's marketed. Nick and his team do a beautiful job there, but in terms of just layman presentation, and I don't mean this negatively. I think it's a beautiful thing for these two companies. Christoph is one and Camacho is the other, where
Yeah, it's like color oriented. What you see,
the coloration and just simplicity, right? Corojo, Nicaragua, and
red.
it's right there. It's in your face, and it's also once you've smoked it a couple times, it's also the color. Well, I know, and the layman doesn't know Corojo from Criollo, but they know I like the red one.
I say, and then in no derogatory or in no ways is negative. I say that Camacho is an idiot-proof brand. And I mean that in that there is not a lot of complex structure to the naming conventions. It's color, name of the brand. Usually the name of the brand is what the wrapper tobacco is. It's getting people, and there's even descriptors on the box. It's just what do you need to know when you buy a cigar? All right, if I tried it, it was Camacho, it was the blue one. That's really all you even need to know. If you know it's Ecuador, more power to you. But then, somebody can go to a cigar shop. I had the yellow one.
Yeah.
All right, great. And that's even better in that people don't need to know all that much about the brand, and the colors are kind of indicative of what the cigar is like as far as intensity. Not totally. I mean, when you smoke a cigar, it's not going to necessarily, you can't read the book by its cover, judge a book by its cover. But for the most part, red, strong, blue, medium, yellow, mild.
It makes sense. It's associative. I mean this with sincerest respect, Jack. And plus, it wasn't your bag because it was way before your time.
Yeah.
But it's clear that works because when they've tried to deviate from that, like one the cigar that always comes to mind as a complete failure for Camacho was Shellback.
Yeah,
which was weird. It had an interesting story for people like you and I that kind of nerd out on that stuff. But it was like,
where does this fit?
Where does this fit? Is it Ecuadorian? Is it blue? Is it red? Like what is this, right? And it was just very off that path, and it followed suit.
Yeah,
it just didn't work well.
I mean, some of the stuff that worked too was just kind of because it was in that same architecture, like the American Barrel Aged, which was around, did great for a while. It was just like, all right, what is this? Okay, I know what it is. It ran its
course a little bit, but
yeah, but it's like it's easily understandable, and that's for if you're the owner of Davidoff. We're trying to sell as many cigars as possible, obviously. But Camacho is a great pathway to get people to try Avo and Davidoff and all these things. And for us, I want people to start and smoke a Connecticut because our Connecticut is incredibly approachable and wonderful. Yeah. And it's just a perfect beginner cigar. It's a perfect cigar for people that like Connecticut's or any cigar smoker, really. But if somebody has tried like 2 cigars and both of them were maybe flavored or whatever, no shame in that as far as I'm concerned. But they want to have one of their first traditional cigar experiences, Camacho Connecticut. Come on. Boom.
They're fantastic.
And then we can kind of guide them through that whole journey. And, the hope being that you've tried a few cigars, you like the 10, 12, I don't know where all of you live. Could be higher taxes. Who knows? But, once they want to start reaching for something in the luxury line, they say, oh, wow, I've heard of this. It's right next to the Davidoffs. Boom. It's kind of have it more holistic and everything, ladders up. Camacho, I think, is a great brand for that. And I think it is a great brand for beginners. And I have no shame in that. I think it's a wonderful place to be one of the first cigars that people smoke and, have some brands like the Corojo and the Triple Maduro that have real, footholds in the market, and people have smoked those and will continue to smoke those for years to come.
I think I'll be honest with you, at first I didn't really the Nicaragua didn't hit my palate like some
Yeah.
of the other blends, but that cigar ages incredibly well.
It's
So
such a weird, yeah, it's such a weird cigar because, I do a lot of like trainings, and for our brand, for the most part, what it says on the band is what the wrapper is. The Ecuador is an Ecuadorian wrapper. It's a Habano, but
yeah,
Connecticut, broadleaf, Corojo, Triple Maduro, San Andreas. But
Maduro.
The Nicaragua is not like, it's like wrong on all of the Nicaragua is not a Nicaraguan puro. It doesn't have all that much Nicaraguan tobacco in it. It's got a couple leaves of filler tobacco that are from Nicaragua. But what I tell people is special about that cigar is that, we're a Honduran company that's making a Honduran cigar to appeal to people that like a Nicaraguan flavor profile, So
Yeah,
if you smoke it and you're looking for like a Espinosa heavy, Ligero kind of pepper experience, I think it's going to have some of that for you, but it's also going to have a lot of earthiness and kind of Honduran flavor profile. It's a great tool for me when I'm in the humidor and somebody says, well, I smoke a lot of my father. I said, amazing, great cigars. If you want to try something that we have, try our Nicaragua.
hmm
And it's a really flavorful, medium, full-bodied, experience that is interesting. I mean, it's because it's kind of a weird cigar in that it's our Nicaragua and it doesn't have a Nicaraguan wrapper or binder. It has some Nicaraguan filler, but I say it's like it's a Honduran company making a Nicaraguan flavor profile, not a
right.
Nicaraguan puro by any means.
So to that point about controversy within your own portfolio and stuff, like is there so this the biggest release that you've done in your time there so far is the broadleaf,
Broadleaf.
which to your point, for a second ago from Triple Maduro, you and I know the difference is obviously there. And then if you smoke the two cigars, I know they're obviously two different experiences. But what was the thinking behind launching a broadleaf? Was it to bring something again similar to Triple Maduro in a similar vein, or was it just like, hey, we're going to explore this leaf and how it can play within our portfolio? What was the mindset there?
The funniest thing is it takes us a long time, Davidoff, Camacho. When we release a new cigar, it's a long process. I think a lot of people would be shocked at how much planning and thought goes into a cigar for a lot of brands. I mean, a lot of your favorite brands. It's
Hmm.
not like we just say, "Hey, what do you think we need? We need a cigar." All right. Like the amount of time it would take to make a new brand at minimum is like a year. But
Hmm.
with conceptualizing and planning and forecasting, and it's a global company, it takes like 2 to 3 years for a new cigar to come from idea to PowerPoint presentation to approval to creation. It's a long, long process. So by the
Especially
time
a
that I
core line. I mean, this is a core
yeah,
line
by the time that I
portfolio.
had started, this had been in progress for some time. So I come from Drew Estate and I get started at Davidoff, and I say, oh, we got a broadleaf coming out. Drew Estate, a ton of Connecticut broadleaf. I mean, there's all up and down that portfolio. There's broadleaf aplenty. I'm like, all right, we're gonna have a Connecticut broadleaf over at Camacho, and I kind of smoked the sample, and I'm like, man, that is not very Connecticut broadleafy, And I'm like, I just don't. It's not that strong, which I was not all that disappointed in, to be honest with you, because if you look at Camacho's portfolio, I think that the Nicaragua is pretty strong. Corojo is pretty damn strong. Triple Maduro is pretty damn strong. So if you're kind of looking for something like where do you put a new cigar? So I smoked it and I was like, all right, not that strong. I don't know. At that time, I considered it to be kind of like a weird blend. I'm like, man, I don't know how you make a. Now, what I didn't know is that the wrapper is not a Connecticut broadleaf at all. It's a Honduran broadleaf. So they made a broadleaf, but it's a Honduran company. They wanted to use Honduran broadleaf, so it takes a flavor profile that you think you know pretty well. And there are some other Honduran broadleafs on the market, Alec Bradley being one of those. And it's way, way, way more medium bodied than you'd think. I actually tell people that one is like the Goldilocks. What is it? Goldilocks? Yes, with the three bears. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm with Bear, fittingly. But like that one's like the total Goldilocks of the entire line. It's dead middle. It looks really dark and rich, but everything is just super earthy, Honduran, buttery, creamy, dead center middle. And it worked out great. It's a testament to, the people that we have working on our brands and blends and the marketing team in Basel that came up with the idea, and my boss, Eddie, who executed it. And it's a medium bodied Honduran broadleaf that kind of goes against what you would think. Now, a lot of my job is educating people based on that, and mostly being retailers and just telling them, hey, this cigar, if you're a full-bodied smoker, you'll smoke it and you'll have a great time. But if you're a mild, medium guy, you're going to be able to smoke this easily. And if you're a person that's looking for a kick in the face and a super strong cigar, you're going to see broadleaf and you're going to say, oh. And you're not going to be disappointed in your experience, but it is not a face-melting, rich smoke bomb like you'd think of.
What a mind blow that should have been, because again, to your point, Drew Estate heavy on broadleaf up and down their portfolio with Honduran filler. So it's like you had experience with those two tobaccos, and then they put this in front of you, and you're like, I know this shit, and then it just completely blows your mind.
It didn't taste like I was expecting it to taste. I would say that I was pleasantly surprised. And it's been great. I mean, it's worked out really great for us. It's the only cigar that I've ever come across where I like the Gordo the best.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which I don't like Gordos. Just weird. For me, it's a unless it's like a box press, I just don't like a Gordo. It's just not my cup of Java. But I like the Gordo. It's just more filler, more better in that one. And it's been going pretty good. It's got 3 sizes, Robusto Toro Gordo. And people seem to dig it. And a lot of people that's been the one that is a crowd pleaser. So I do a lot of blind tastings. And what I mean by that is I literally will offer to a group of people. I'll do a Camacho training. So I'll go around and I have a little training book, and I'll train the staff and any buddy that's in the lounge that's just a consumer. They'll do a little training. I'll say, all right, I have a wager. Whoever thinks that their palate is pretty dialed in, I'll give you one of the 6 Camachos. And you literally have to, I even have one right here. You literally have to like sleep mask blindfold yourself. I bring them with me. And I even take the band off because everybody cheats. Everybody's a cheating SOB. But I blindfold them because you actually pay attention if you're smoking a blind. And we have, like a Connecticut, it's pretty easy to tell what it is if you're looking at it.
Yeah, 1,000%.
But it's shocking how many people, one, are right on the money. There's 2 camps. There's the right on the money, and they couldn't be further from the. It's crazy how, because everybody can, zero in on flavors, especially if you just kind of distill it. It's like, is this spicy or not spicy? Okay, it is spicy. It's not spicy. Is it strong or is it not strong? It's not that strong. Those 2 realms will get people closer than they would think to, identify.
Got to think about it. Yeah. Interesting.
It's nuts.
Now, is the Camacho Liberty Project still going on, or is that something you guys have sunset?
As when I started, as of right now, we have 6 core lines. That's it. We have discontinued, or a lot of the stuff it's like, this is, especially with Davidoff, it's like, this isn't goodbye forever. This is goodbye for now. So what we decided to do is really, in this time, there's so many new cigars coming out. There's so many new things, different, and retailers, humidors aren't growing. So we decided to just trim the fat, stick with our core lines, And then, on occasion, we'll release something like the Factory Unleashed series, which is a cool limited project. And then if we have a really great blend that we believe in, we'll introduce a new brand. So right now we have our core five, which we call them, which is the Connecticut, Ecuador, Broadleaf, Nicaragua, Corojo, and then the Triple Maduro, which technically exists outside of our core line. So the Triple Maduro is like $1 more a cigar. So it's actually pretty surprising when people hear that because one, we've released a ton of stuff throughout the years. There's been so many different brands and blends. And two, there's only six lines. That's it. That's all we got right now.
Yeah, it's a solid portfolio like we've talked about too, which is great. We're talking about my favorite in the portfolio here in just a second when we kind of get to our Artista segment. But
Yeah.
before we get to that, just a couple of last couple of questions. With this again, with it being so simple, is that a challenge for you, Jack? That the fact that it's not as extensive as it was at Drew, or or even, I would argue that Alec Bradley probably had a more vast portfolio than even Drew
Oh,
Estate.
100%. I
So
think I think for me it's kind of nice because one, I'm just if somebody walks in, I don't have to walk them through 37 different things. We cover a myriad of different flavor. So we have mild, medium, medium full, full body. Right there, we have everything you need.
yeah,
We have spicy cigars. We have not spicy cigars. We have everything you need. It would kind of be like the interesting thing is that a company like Drew Estate or Alec Bradley, it's kind of like a house of brands or a branded house or like the two. So like there's no cigar that's called the Drew Estate. It's like there are many, many, many cigars that are sold by Drew Estate or Alec Bradley. Likewise for Camacho, every cigar is the Camacho X, the Camacho Y, the Camacho Z. So I wouldn't say it's a challenge. At the price point that Camacho competes in can be challenging. There's a lot of different brands that are, 10 to 12 bucks. So I say we're in Gen Pop, so Davidoff's a totally different ballgame. There's not as many luxury cigar items and certainly not as many that are of a Davidoff quality and consistency. But I think it's nice. I mean, Camacho's it's a great cigar, and it's nice when the product speaks for itself as far as quality and consistency. Definitely doesn't make it difficult to sell or talk about. Makes my life easier, my job easy.
sure. Well, man, I'm doing it. I'm taking out this cigar that was that was purchased in March of 2010. I will tell you off air the significance of this cigar after we conclude our show here in a little bit. But I am going to light this baby up. It has been in that cellophane, and yes, it might be green, but there is some wonderful hue to that cello. That is some yellow cello, even on a candela. And we're going to conclude our show with some fun segments. Jack, really appreciate you being a part of this show, man. It's great having you back. I remember years ago when I started the show. We'll be celebrating my anniversary of the show, 7th anniversary. And you were in you're in year one, man. You were year one, and I brought you on. You were the first media personality I ever brought on with Cigar Dojo, and I'll tell you this, man. I think that I've had a lot of great shows and I've had a lot of great guests over the years, and I've really gotten into what I've really wanted to create with this show which is show the human side of the industry, like what makes people, what makes people people. You, I can honestly say this, that you were there were two shows in my first year that I really captured the essence of what I was trying to capture. One was with Miguel Shodell. I had never met him before until that night when we did our very first show together.
You guys are like long lost.
And yeah, we were like long lost friends. It was crazy. Like the things that we had to share in common, a love for baseball, love for presidential trivia of all things. It was very, very bizarre. But with your first appearance on the show, I had a couple of people ask me like, why do you, and yourself too, like, you want me? And they're like, you want to interview Jack? And I'm like, yes, because I knew that yes, here's this co-host of a very popular cigar podcast who's very good at what he does. But there is a story behind this person and this personality and this character that I really wanted to get to know, and I thought was a story worth telling. And you obviously didn't disappoint. And so here we are, 7 years later, and the evolution of Jack Heyer continues, and you're just doing some really great things,
I
man.
can't believe we've been doing this for this long.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I'm gonna go ahead and light this cigar up, man. We're gonna do it, but we're gonna go into our Artista segment, which is brought to you obviously by Artista Cigars, which is truly the last hidden gem of the Dominican Republic. With nearly 70 years of rolling cigars, the family behind Artista believes in honoring their long-held tradition of handmade artistry. Artista blends include factory-exclusive tobaccos and front marks for every budget. In fact, Artista Cigars has one of the most varied portfolios on the market. There's something for everyone at Artista. Now, if you're like me and you really can't decide most of the time, Artista is a great breath of fresh air because I can literally take something from any box of Artista cigars and I know I'm going to get something really special. So, Jack, this is a rapid fire segment. Give you two things. You tell me which one you're picking. It's pretty simple. So here we go. We've got some cigar related stuff and we have some non-cigar related stuff. So this is Camacho specific. These first two, okay? Ecuador or Corojo?
Ecuador, my personal favorite.
Mine too, man. I knew we were going to talk about this. I've seen you smoke it. I'm like, I want to know if Jack's in Ecuador. It is my favorite blend in the whole portfolio, and I love that it's still around.
That's my baby.
Which Vitola is your favorite? Which one?
Box press.
Yes, my man. Fuck yeah. Yes. It's so good. It is so goddamn good. The BXB, man. That's my favorite Connecticut too. That's my favorite Vitola in the Connecticut.
I just like the box. I mean, we have a nice sturdy draw. I like a really loose draw. I like a almost underfilled cigar. It's a bad quality of mine. You have to relight it so much. So our cigars are made very well, so we don't have that. That's why I like a box press, because it's as loose of a draw as you're going to get with a Camacho. It's not a loose draw, but it is a looser draw.
Yeah, the airflow is perfect in those. They really are. I have had some underfilled box presses and it's too much. And I've had some tight box presses, which is worse than a tight Parejo. So I think you answered the next one, which is box press or Parejo. So you're a box press guy?
But I don't know. Maybe not in general. No. It depends on the one. I like a soft box press. I don't like a real
not a trunk press.
No, I like a nice the old Norteños.
Oh yes. Those are fantastic.
That was a perfect box press.
Those are fantastic. All right, back to the Camacho portfolio. The new broadleaf or Nicaragua?
I'm a broadleaf.
Okay. All right. You answered this at the top, but you said we would revisit it. So how do you prefer to light your cigar? A soft flame or a torch?
A torch. And ideally it's a really crappy one. I don't know. For some reason a cigar tastes better the crappier the lighter is. It has to be above like a Bic. There's nothing wrong with a Bic. But I don't know. I like lighting a really nice cigar with a crappy lighter. Something about it.
Just those cheap butanes that you can get through airports still. Those hard plastic ones.
That's my style. And I didn't use a cutter because I forgot my cutter because I never bring a cutter. So it's it's a very nice cigar that I either pinched or and then I lit it with a nice jet line.
Well, I'll tell you on this Camacho Candela, man, the burn is relatively straight. You'd think that after the years, after 14 years, this thing would
hold up. Those super old ones, they hold up a lot, and they have a lot more pop than I would think. I've smoked several just kind of ancient Camachos now in my time. They still have a little more pop than you'd expect.
Yeah, it does. This one has some giddy up, dude.
Pretty surprised.
The wrapper's grassy and very, very hay. You're getting that typical Candela, but the The inside it's got some gumption, man. That's crazy that after all these years there's still something to it. It's not even the retro hail's got some little giddy up here, so that's
No. I want to do a Camacho Candela just for the green band alone. Just the green Camacho band. It just would be too easy. It would just be it's just begging.
well they did that limited run
Yeah,
around St. Patrick's Day. I don't know. I want to say 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that.
something like that. Yeah.
And I thought they were great. Like I was like, man, they needed to keep this, and they nope
Never
limited.
been I've never been much of a Candela guy. My favorite Candelas don't taste very much like Candela, so I think that means that I might not be the biggest, supporter of Candela. I love the novelty of it. How can you not?
Yeah, for sure. All right. So to personal preferences. I'm a hat guy. I see you wearing a lot of hats. You're here wearing one right now. So do you prefer to wear a hat most of the time or not wear a hat?
I think in an ideal world, my hair is always looking good and I've showered and I haven't had a long day and I don't wear a hat. I
Okay.
end up wearing a hat most days. So ideally, no hats, but it's always hats because, I'm working on kind of a long hair thing and I just look crazy all the time. So I just got to tuck it in there.
Gotta roll with it.
Yeah.
You rock the snap. I'm not a snapback guy. You rock the snapback pretty damn good. I think it's a young guy thing. I'm 40 now,
I like
and
a snapback, and most of my hats are free hats that were given to me or like our promo hats. So those are all snapbacks because we
yeah.
can't fit it. If it's like a baseball hat, I'm wearing like a 7 5/8 because I got a giant head. But
That's
I
my
like
size.
I like a fitted hat. But I'm like a baseball fan orphan bear. I don't know if we've talked about this. I know that we haven't actually because I've renounced my Colorado Rockies. I'm over it. I
You're
won't do it
done.
anymore. This was about 3 or 4 years ago when they traded Nolan Arenado. I said I don't need to be in this abusive relationship anymore.
Hey, you know what? You got to get out when you got to get out, man. If it's no good, it's no good.
I tried to do the Marlins, but the Marlins just don't. They
They
just didn't
suck.
have. There's just not that much like There's not like Marlins blogs. There's just not that much like hometown like gumption. Like there's not that much support there, so it's hard. It's like I can't join a fan base where I feel like
Well,
people
there's
show up
just
playing,
it's so
but
much
it's just
changeover there. I mean, like it's the cigar industry of the baseball of baseball. There's just so much recycling and stuff,
so.
and
I've been for this last season. I was like, all right, I live 4 blocks from Tropicana Field. So I was like, I'm going to be a Rays guy. And I was following the season. Couldn't have picked a worse season to jump on the Rays bandwagon.
yeah,
Now they don't even have a stadium.
yeah.
The franchise player is a pervert criminal. It's just like everything blew up. So I might just be cursed.
But that aside, how did everything in your town fare? Like, I mean, are like all your car okay? Your apartment complex fared well and everything like that?
It was pretty nuts. So I live in a townhouse, which I'm lucky because it was built somewhat recently, sturdy. In the last storm, our next door neighbor had a window blasted out by some sort of debris or something. So that was Helene. So when this one was kind of barreling down on us, I was supposed to go to Tennessee for a week. I was supposed to have events in Tennessee. And I was like, man, this one looks all sorts of scary. So my fiance and I evacuated. We went and stayed with her parents in Fort Lauderdale. Everything around me, Bear, a lot of crazy stuff happened in our little area, just like trees falling down. My car had tree branches fall all around it, no damage. I mean, if I stepped outside, I could see the trop from where I live,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
whole shredded. There's like 3 or 4 blocks the opposite direction. There's a high rise. One of the cranes fell over into a building on the other side. So like today, we walked our dog and half the streets are closed because different stuff fell over. It was pretty gnarly. We were really lucky. This whole area though, people are struggling or suffering because it was 2 back-to-back really bad storms. But
That's crazy.
we were all right. To the best of my knowledge, all the Davidoff employees and all my coworkers were all right. Our building was all right. But it was a crazy one. We're all kind of willing and ready for this hurricane season to be over because it was brutal.
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm glad you were okay, and I'm glad you were able to get out safe and spend some time with family and.
Oh yeah, it was best case scenario there. But it was I'm not from around here, so like the Floridians are like, yeah, it's all right, we'll ride this out. I'm like, I'm not riding anything out.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Get me to the high ground, and
we don't have this. We don't have any of this. I'm not built for this. I'm dipping. No chance.
So I know in recent years you're obviously rocking the beard and doing a really good job at it, but do you prefer facial hair or no facial hair?
I gotta be a beard. I say it's like man's makeup. I wouldn't say ugly without the beard, but like, I don't know, not trustworthy. It looks weird. I look like a baby that's an adult. It's very strange, kind of boss baby. I need the beard.
When's the last time you shaved?
So I do like once a year. I call it mustache month. So I just go solo stash for like 1 month a year.
Okay.
I don't remember when I did it last. I think I did it at the beginning of this year, maybe. I don't know. I mess around and do it once, or I try to like self kind of trim a little bit, and inevitably once in a while you just kind of like, and then you're just like, oh no, I got to take it all down. But I like a solo stash from time to time. But now. And I have a rule: if I have my hair's long, so I try to keep the beard short, and if my hair's short, I'll let the beard go a little bit more. But if I do, I kind of look a little ZZ Top-ish, so it's one or the other.
I grew my hair out a lot over the COVID years and stuff, and it just I'll never do it again, man. I've cut my hair. Yeah, cut my hair. I had it long last year and cut it. And I've had it short for, the last 14, 15 months, and I'll never go back to longer hair. It just don't like it. And it was just laziness. I mean, all it was. But
I'm in the same. They're expensive. My haircut's like $60. That's too much money.
Yeah. But I'd rather. I don't know. I'm too old, man. I'm too old to have that. Unless I don't have that much on top too, and it looks gross. So, just gotta. So gonna keep it all short, keep the beard going, and it's all its magic.
It served you well.
Thank you. All right. So to your job, brand activation or officiating a wedding, which I know you've done.
I don't know. I think that like doing cigars like trainings is easier because. If I screw up one of those, nobody really cares, or even like a freestyle live. If I like mess up slightly, it's not a big deal.
People there to back you up. Yeah.
I officiated my sister's wedding and you're on an island. Like you're the only one talking for most of it. That's like a holy sacred thing, Cigars are like the opposite. So it's like, I actually am not like, I wouldn't say I'm uncomfortable with public speaking, but I don't like enjoy it. Every time I go up to like a situation where I have a microphone, my thought is like, don't screw it up. It's not like, here we go. It's like, it's not my favorite thing. I just happen to be all right at it. So I'm happy to do it.
Was that the plan for your sister? Like she always wanted you to do it, or was there a circumstance that led to it?
No, yeah. I think from the beginning, it was kind of because like they had smaller like bridal parties. And she's like, well, I don't really want to ask him to like have you be one of his groomsmen, but we think you do a really good job at this. And I was like, oh, I got it. So I didn't have to make a speech. It was a good way. Everybody wins. I was involved. I didn't really have to make like a speech at any portion or like be featured in any other way. So it was a nice thing. And then, you always got to decide who's going to be your officiant. That's kind of a tough thing. So
yeah.
I felt good about it. It went good.
Younger sister or older sister?
My older sister.
Oh, yeah. Younger bro officiating the wedding.
Yeah, it worked out great.
That's awesome.
Popped in, got it done. Nice. It was like 15 minutes in and out. Let's get to the
stole looked well on you, man. You look like you were in your place.
I borrowed that from my one of my best friends, his mom is a minister for years and years and years and years. So she has like, I went over and she had like 15 of them. She was like, try this one, try this one, try this one.
Yeah. It's awesome, man. You look good.
I
You
wish
look the part.
Come on, well, that might be sacrilegious. Just get a Camacho one and wear it to like the trade show. Matt Booth would do something like that. I don't know if I could get away with it.
All right. Hosting a podcast or being a guest on a podcast? What's harder?
Hosting a podcast is way harder because if I just don't answer a question or like give you nothing to work with, you have to keep going, you know? Mm-hmm. It's like you're throwing BP. Well, that's a bad example because I guess hitting BP is harder than throwing BP, but like you're just teeing it up, you know? I don't have to do anything. I have to prepare for this. Not at all. You have to do some preparation.
Sure. So on that same note, hosting a podcast or hosting a cigar event?
It depends. Like a small one, hosting a podcast, like a big giant barn smokery thing. Those are so hard. So like podcast, I don't know if it's a small, if there's 20 people, podcast. If there's more, event.
Nice. All right. Well, that was our Artista segment, this or that. Make sure that you check out Artista Cigars. They are a breath of fresh air after all, because if you can ever decide on what cigar to smoke, there's something for everyone in a box of Artista cigars. So reach one and you know you're getting something special. So this next segment is brought to you by Postani Cigars. Everybody eats. If you always make sure that your servant's towel is bigger than your appetite, everybody will always get theirs. Postani Cigars is more than just great cigars made by cool people. They embody an attitude of gratitude and grit. With Postania, everybody eats. So, Jack, what is the best experience you've had? Because I know you've had a lot of, like you said, you've gone to South America and Central America, and you've done a lot of these, Camp Camacho type things and stuff like that. You've been to Vegas and the trade shows, and you've traveled all over the country and the world. So what's the best experience you've had with eating with other people?
Ooh, I always love the quintessential like media dinner in Vegas. I, as a rule, don't really like steakhouses because like a steakhouse, in my opinion, you're just like, I can make a steak pretty well myself. So I feel like I'm paying multiples and multiples and multiples for somebody else to cook a really expensive steak. And so like if I'm on my own, I never like to go to a steakhouse because I'm like, I just feel like I'm paying $100 for a steak when I can make an okay steak at home for, $20. But I will say on the other end, the once a year when you're lucky enough to go to Vegas and it's a big celebratory event and you get to do it like the proper way, and get the abs for everybody. Tomahawk, we're going to cut that up 15 ways. So we've had a couple different nights like that where it's been like incredible. There was one time with the dojo guys at John George Steakhouse. There's a dojo guy that works there in the Aria. I think it's in the Aria. Incredible. Just that's the best. With the asterisks that, I wasn't paying for that at the time. That makes it a lot nicer too. I just went to this place in outside of Springfield, Missouri. It was called Lambert's Throne Rolls. This will be my caveat for like a normal person story. Bear, you would love it. They make rolls and you just put your hand up and they just chuck a roll at you. So like it's literally the guy was like side arming like he was throwing like a slider. He'd be like across the room and you could literally give him this and it's just like this big puffy roll and those chuck a roll at you. And it's like down home Southern eating. It was delicious. And they literally throw rolls like full speed at you.
How many did you miss?
I caught all of them, but I only like we went at like 11 in the morning. So it's like, man, I can't put down like 5 rolls. I just woke up, I woke up, I had my cup of coffee. I can't eat that many rolls, but they're big too. So they just kind of like, there's like, It's
Awesome.
great.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. All right. So this will bring us to, we got two more questions before we conclude our evening here, Jack. So our next segment is brought to you by Asylum Cigars. Refuge is more than just a physical place. It can be a state of mind. Some of life's greatest moments can be a moment of reflection found in our own personal asylum. Moments like these were made for Asylum Cigars. So light up an asylum and choose your refuge. So, Jack, this segment is about, you in particular, especially the last few years of your career, have been about the community, right? They've been about the event, people gathering around, smoking cigars, enjoying them together, a moment of bonding, right? And that's a vast majority of what this is about. And you talked about at the top of the show how you've kind of traded those moments of solitude in because it's now your day job. And so I'm asking you to look back maybe to that moment of solitude, that moment of reflection where it was just you and the cigar, nobody else, no one was around, but it was you and the cigar. And you probably had several of them, especially when you first started out. But what's a moment that you can remember off the top of your head that was a real beautiful moment where it was just you and the cigar? You could be celebrating something. Maybe it was just a moment of pondering. But what was that moment about? And if you can remember, what was the cigar you were smoking?
Ooh, during COVID, a ton. I think I have a picture of it. But during COVID, a ton, I would go on like a nice mental health walk. Because you're watching shows all day, and then I was working, so you're on like Zoom calls all day. But I would every day when like this like kind of golden hour, I would take a stick for a walk, and I would just walk around my little neighborhood. I'd listen to my music. I think that was the last time that I was consistently like tranquilly smoking. I had a good bit too where I would post, I'd post the picture and my feet would be in it sometimes, but I would blur my feet out and I would say, "Hey guys, no free feet pics." I got to figure out what it was. I don't remember what it was. Darn it. No, I think it was like a test blend for
Like maybe the
some sort of,
blackened or something, or
yeah, something like that. But that kind of ruins the segment because I don't really remember. I do remember there was a
well, what was your favorite moments about those like walks? Like
just kind
what
of
gave you
not.
that inner peace and stuff?
And like the funniest thing is I'll find when I'm like running around or something, there will be like a cigar will smell like how they used to smell, and that doesn't mean that cigars have changed. But like I remember when I first started smoking, I'd be like, "Oh man, this cigar smells really like." I don't even know what the note would be, but you're like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh man." So like I'll catch somebody smoking a cigar that I used to smoke when I first started smoking cigars, and I
Mm-hmm.
can just kind of smell it, and it just reminds me of when it was like fresh and exciting and new,
Yeah.
and you like got a hold of whatever, or like the shop down the road from you had blank, and I would run, grab them, come home, and light up and be on my iPad, and I'd be watching, stuff like we're recording now. I'd be on
Yeah.
YouTube watching old cigar aficionado things or looking up reviews or. I always think very fondly of my exploratory phase where I was learning about. I'm always learning about cigars, but
I that's so true. Like I found that there's distinct that cigar shops specifically have distinct aromas. Like you think, oh,
yeah,
they all smell the same, they're all smoking cigars. No, it's the way that the cigar smokes melds with the environment and the structure and the people and it's just there's very distinct smells. Like I worked at Michael's Tobacco of Euless for years. That
yeah,
shop has a very distinct smell. I worked at Pop Safari, which rest in peace, doesn't exist anymore, and the owner passed away a couple years ago. And that shop was the first cigar shop I ever stepped foot in as a college freshman. And it had a very distinct aroma. And there are a handful of cigars that I have smoked that when I light up, it takes me to Pop
yeah.
Safari. And Diesel Esteli Puro is one of them. The Camacho Liberty 2017 was
Wow.
another one that I lit it up and I felt like I was back at Pop Safari. And it was and that's an incredible feeling to transport yourself back to a moment in time or a place in time. And they do it. And that's what's really great about aroma. And it's specifically aroma. It's not necessarily the way the cigar tastes, it's the way it smells. And
Well,
I'm with you.
I have a question for you. This might be a two-parter because like I always think about, the first time I like rereading or re-listening to like a book that I've read before and it's been years later and you kind of pick up on some different things. But you're a movie guy and we're both cigar guys. So if there were a movie or a cigar or both that you could do the Men in Black thing to yourself and like and then re-smoke or rewatch for the first time again, what would be your choices? So I'll go first to give you some time
Okay.
to kind of ponder it. But I have a very fond memory. It was one of the first times I ever hung out with Eric from Cigar Dojo, and he gave me a Goldie #2. It was a Lancero, and it was like I was like, "This is a perfect cigar. This is the greatest cigar that's ever been made. This cigar is like tap dancing in heaven. I can't even imagine it." And as far as like movie that I saw once that like that I think would be amazing to see again for the first time. I don't know. I'm going to think about it for a second. I don't know if I have a good answer at this exact moment.
Well, I got the cigar for you too. So it take you back to Pop Safari because my first trip into Pop Safari when I was an 18-year-old freshman in college, 20 plus years ago. And God, fuck, almost God, yeah, almost 25 years ago. Jesus. Um uh I went in thinking I was big and bad, and I knew of one brand, of course, and a couple brands, but I knew one brand was Romeo and Julieta, and that's what I was on a mission
Yeah.
to get, right? And walk in, and an old rep for this area represented a number of brands, and it was kind of legendary in our area. And his name was Jack Sandlin, and Jack's working for a brand called La Flor Dominicana at the time, and this is 2002, so like La Flor was like not that old. They're celebrating their 30th anniversary this year, so they were not that old at this point. And Jack puts his arm around me, almost kind of like a very used car salesman a little, and he's like, "Hey, what are you smoking, son?" I'm like, "I'm coming here to smoke a Romeo Julieta. I know what I'm doing." And he's like, "No, you're not. You're gonna smoke this." And it was a La Flor Dominicana single Lajero, single Lajero. They didn't have the double Lajero hadn't been released yet, and I've had a handful of cigars in my life at this point. Because I'm 18 and like,
Yeah.
and I lighted up that Lajero, man, and my mind is dancing. And it was unreal, an unreal experience beyond all imagination. And the buzz and the flavor and mixed with the aroma of the shop, like I was saying earlier, and it was a magical moment. That is the reason why I'm here talking to you today.
Oh, that's
It
awesome.
is the reason I am here today. And um and I've smoked La Flor Dominicana Ligero since, and they're still great. They're still phenomenal.
You caught like that one
But
at the
yeah, it's not that they don't taste the same. You can't recapture that moment. But so if I wanted to recapture that moment, that's the moment I would choose. That's the cigar I would choose, and I would just absolutely I would relive it again 1,000 times. It was magical. As far as a film, that's a really good question. There's a lot of great ones over the years. I think um we're gonna take a little downer here. You I most of my audience is aware of this. You might be aware of this here. I recently lost my father this year, and one of our favorite. We watched every John Wayne film ever throughout my childhood, but um, the film that we loved the most, and it's still my favorite film to this day, is Field of Dreams.
oh
Um,
man. Yeah.
and and um, the first time I watched it with him, and
That is
there
a dude cry classic.
every
I can't
yeah
even turn the movie on without getting a little misty.
and I think I cry more and more as I get older. But the first time, obviously, I was a kid and I didn't. But I was so captivated by the magic of this field and the trans transcendentalist, you know, juxtaposition of baseball and how it fit in, and it fit into my father's life because baseball was very much a part of his life, and he got really emotional with it. And I didn't, as a youth, I didn't really understand. I was a young child, of course, I didn't
Yeah.
really understand. And until that last scene when he asks his dad to play catch, and I mean, I didn't cry, like I said, as the first time, but my dad was, he had the tears coming down his cheek and stuff. And um, I, I just, I, I would love to relive that with him again. From that perspective, not just
Oh,
because he's not alive, but from that perspective of not understanding the moment and then
yeah.
suddenly understanding the moment, and enjoying that film for what it was. So that's probably my pick.
So to dovetail on that, my dad and I, that's one of our favorite movies, shared experiences ever. So this year, for Father's Day, I didn't tell my dad what we were doing, but I booked him a trip to Kansas City. I had an event in Kansas City, Bear, and the two of us drove to
No, you
Iowa.
didn't. Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
we did. Yeah, and we went and we had a catch on the Field of Dreams field.
Oh my gosh.
And then the night before, we were staying in a hotel in Iowa, and I said, "Do you have any idea what we're doing?" He's like, I was trying to look up concerts or this or that, and they had available to rent Field of Dreams, and we both were just crying and crying, and then we
Oh,
went out and we had a catch on the Field of Dreams, and I'm like, man, I think we could have played catch there for 6 hours, but were like, all right, we have to leave eventually, but that was a good one. Now my answer is not going to seem as good. I was going to say, like, I was trying to think of a movie with a good twist at the end,
hmm.
just to like I was thinking like Memento or like Seven or something like that.
Yeah.
I take your answer. I redo my answer. My answer is your answer. That's a good answer.
So again, just like think about this, and I know you're younger, and I don't even know if you and your fiance are ever are planning to or want to have kids of your own one day, but there's always a last there's always a last something, right?
Hmm.
There's the last time you'll ever hold your cat, right? And not that they're gone, but I mean they just get big,
Yeah,
I have a 9-year-old son, and
you're not.
he still wants me to carry him everywhere. So I do, and it hurts like the dickens because he's heavy as shit, but I'll do it just because I mean I don't know how much longer he's going to ask
Yeah,
for that. And there was a moment, and we my dad and I played catch, well into my young adulthood,
yeah.
but there was a time and I can't remember what it was, Chuck. I don't remember the last time we played catch,
But there was
and
one.
and there was one last time, and it'll be forever, and my memory is extremely good. But it's something that I've scoured my mind and for to try and remember that moment. But I keep going back to the moments when I was a kid and playing catch with them, and it's just fine. Those were beautiful moments. But I'd love to remember the last moment that I had catch with him, and he had such a wonderful use of language and words, and he always had this uncanny ability to lay a maxim or a mantra or words of advice that just in a Jeffersonian poetic way that was just unbelievable. And he had this incredible turn of phrase all the time, and that's a gift that I I hope that as my kids age that I can somehow do justice to them, but for them, because it every time I do something, I hear him with one of his countless phrases or expressions, and it's just it's a beautiful tribute to him, the way to go through life and just kind of hear his words echoing and things like that. What a great moment for you and your dad, though. Oh my gosh. That's the best.
Well,
That's awesome.
that's another benefit of being able to, you travel a bunch, and you're like, well, I'm going to be in Kansas. How far is that from up? It's close enough. It's. I'm very lucky to get to do that, and I had the same exact thought, Bears, because my whole life, my dad and I have been talking about one day we got to go out there, and one day, and
Mhm.
he's in his mid 60s, but he's not, but you never know. It's like I said, I see a time where we can do it. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
And it costs a few dollars, whatever. I'm never going to remember, what I would have done
Yeah.
if I didn't do that. But I'll always remember, getting to go out to Dyersville, Iowa. It is really in the middle of nowhere. And, have a camp.
That's awesome, man. Beautiful, beautiful. All right. Well, that brings us to our last question of the evening, which is our Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust curveball segment. Fastballs or curveballs, it doesn't matter. Since the company's inception, Steve Saka has been knocking them out of the park. Count them up, 9 consecutive years in the consensus top 3. Congratulations to our good friend, Mr. Steve Saka. So you kind of gave me the inspiration here, Jack, because at the top of the show you mentioned how the cigar industry's given you a lot over the years, and you kind of gave it even credit to the reason why you were together with your soon to be bride. So
Yes.
I don't know the story of how you two met, but
Yes.
the curveball here is, if you hadn't been in the cigar industry, where do you think and how do you think you would have met your future wife?
I really would not have, because I moved to Miami. So we just would never have met. And if I had never smoked cigars, God knows what I'd be doing. That's the funniest thing is, I probably would still be at the state pension plan. That was my plan. I was going to work at the state pension plan for 30 years and retire at 50. Which is a great plan, but it's not a very sexy plan when you're in your early 20s. It's not a very. So I don't think we would have. I never liked Florida. I had only been a couple times, and it was just really humid and sweaty. So I didn't like the idea of Florida. I would make a lot of jokes with Florida being the butt end of the jokes. And now I've lived in Florida for like 5 years, and I kind of love it. So yeah, I don't think that we would have ever crossed paths ever. We don't really, besides reality television, we don't share a lot of interests that would lead us to bump into each other in public. So yeah, if it wasn't, I owe cigars everything.
So how did you two meet? Did at a cigar
Online.
event or online?
No,
Okay.
she's not much of a tobacco enthusiast, and that does not bother me a bit. I kind of like. I like to golf. She doesn't like to golf. I think it's great that we both have our own, she does Pilates. I am not, I don't know if you could tell, a Pilates practitioner.
Did you give it a go? Did you give it a try?
I've tried yoga, but Pilates is intense, man. Especially the reformer thing. That's like a whole nother. I'm neither strong nor pliable, and that's like the two things. You can be both simultaneously. So, we don't have we have shared interests, and we have our hobbies that we do on our own. And I think that's one of our keys to a nice, healthy, happy relationship. Is
There you go.
I really respect couples that like live together, work together, are always together. Because I don't know how I'm a lot as a person. I don't know how she would do it. She's easy. I think that I could spend a lot of time with her, no problem. But I'm on the inverse. That's a lot, So it's kind of if there was a positive to traveling, is you realize you miss a person when you're gone for a few days.
Are you as extroverted as the personality that we all know?
Oh no, not. I'm actually pretty. I would say that I'm extroverted only in public. I like to recharge. It's like a battery for me. So when I'm home, I like to just be. My couch is my favorite place in the world.
So I'm killing the recharge time by having you on the show.
No. This is not a big strain. if we were doing this at like a nightclub or like a sports bar, you know when they do the live sports bar shows.
Yeah.
It's like getting dressed and going out into public. I'm in shorts and Crocs right now. That's not a big strain, but yeah. So that's what is a good balance. I got to be home on the weekends. I recharge the battery. I go out all week, talk to a million people, shake a million hands, come home, do it again.
Awesome. Well, Jack, I really appreciate you coming on the show tonight. Fantastic. Loved catching up with you.
You're quite the conversationalist.
Yeah, I've been accused of worse, so it works out. So I really do appreciate all the time that you've spent with me this evening and stuff. I'll give you back to your beautiful fiance, and you guys can enjoy the rest of the early morning until you got to clock in for Monday morning, like the rest of us and everything.
I know. I saw Eddie on the chat. So Eddie, if I'm late for work tomorrow,
he knows. He's been on the show. He gets it. He gets it. That's the beauty about having some of the folks on the industry is like when their boss is tuning in and they're like they understand. They're like, oh, Bear Show, I get it. It's cool. It's cool. I'm giving him excuse. I've had the blessing of having like Dave Garofalo and Alan Rubin on twice, and they're like both of them have told me, Bear, you're the only person I would do this for. Stay at this late. So good times, but we do appreciate our audience. Thanks for tuning in with us tonight. We had a great time with catching up with Jack and all things Camacho and getting a little bit of the evolution, the story of the evolution of Jack Heyer as we kind of explored that together, and we talked through some great things tonight. So really do appreciate all those comments. Keep them coming, like, shares, and always you can check us out on our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and don't forget to hit the little bell so you get notified whenever we post these shows. If you're listening to us later, wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure you download, subscribe, and review. If you already are a subscriber, do me a favor, hit unsubscribe. That really helps my numbers. But don't forget to hit resubscribe. That's what really, really helps my numbers. And thank you for all the constructive feedback. I've been seeing these comments lately. Thank you so much. For the guy who early on gave me a 1-star review with no comment, that absolutely did nothing for me. But to the guy who recently gave me a 1-star review and said, my audio levels suck. Hey, that is constructive feedback. Hopefully the audio levels have been improving. I've been trying to talk louder. I've been trying to adjust those on the post edit. So hopefully you're being able to hear us a little bit better. And but thank you so much. Look, I've only done 309 of these. We just try to get better each and every week. So thank you to that. Tonight's audio broadcast is courtesy of Grand Habano Cigars. Honest, compassionate, great cigars. Be sure you download, subscribe to review today, wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Tonight's video broadcast on YouTube is sponsored by Foundation Cigars. You can tune into our YouTube channel thanks to our good friends at Foundation Cigars. Check out the latest and greatest from Nick Melillo and all things coming from Foundation. And for everyone out there, this was our 309th take. Like I said, only done 309 of these. We got a birthday episode coming up next week. It's going to be fantastic. Steve Saka will be making a return to my birthday episode, and we got Juan Martinez, Hoy de Nicaragua, will be joining him as well. So it'll be a fun and awesome birthday celebration for myself. And then the following week will be our 7th anniversary. We've been doing this for 7 years. So really looking forward to all these future takes, as well as celebrating the ones in the past. This was Jack's 3rd time on my show. I can't wait to have him on for a 4th time. But Jack, don't hold to your tradition. Yeah. Stay with Camacho. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We appreciate you staying up late with us. My name's Bear Duplessis. I'm your host as always, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studio of Azle, Texas. He's Jack Heyer. Guess what, everybody? We'll see you next time.